What is going on, guys? Skullrider here. Welcome to the third progress report of my year-long album challenge. Now, if you're watching and aren't sure what exactly this challenge is, I recommend you go and check out my previously uploaded video titled A Very Important Channel Announcement. But to give you all a super quick and brief summary, this challenge has me listening to an album a day from a list off Rate Your Music, which consists of the most highly rated albums on the site. In each of these weekly progress reports, I will be ranking and discussing each of the albums that I listened to in this past week. But yeah, with all that aside, let's get right into the content. Okay, to start off this video at album number 352, we have Mozart's Requiem, a true classic. Okay, as I am making this video, that ranking is technically incorrect as there was a bit of a change to the album ranking already. Album number 352 is actually now an album I already covered that happened to get booted up. So due to that, I'm going to go back down to the highest album that I have not covered already, and that happened to be this one. Okay, so I feel like in order to really enjoy music like this, you really just gotta listen to a bunch of it over time. Like developing a liking for fine wine. I've heard a few things here and there from the classical genre, but not really much from the opera side of things. And honestly, I felt like this record emphasized the operatic vocals more than anything. The songs that I enjoyed the most from here were definitely the more flaring and dramatic ones. Because for the slower songs, I admittedly did zone out on some of them. But as for the tracks that I did pay attention to, I just loved how they kind of made you take this step outside yourself and just have all these thoughts about life, about death. But most of the images that came into my head were like compilations of super epic movie scenes and stuff. Especially for like Dies Irae, which I'm sure has actually been used in several motion pictures. But yeah, the super grandiose moments on here definitely did deliver these shocking sensations to the human soul. This album, even though it was made before albums were even a thing, was solid. But just because I'm not super accustomed to and have yet to be fully able to appreciate music like this, I'm gonna have to give it a low B. Alrighty, next up we have Welcome to Sky Valley by the stoner rock band Kiss. Kuss? I think I'm pronouncing that right. So at first I was unsure if I could really get down to this kind of music, as this is really the first time I've heard anything in the stoner subgenre. But it was probably about halfway through this record that I realized that yes, this music does in fact go really hard. The instrumentals on this thing were just super epic, especially the guitar man, like the sound it was able to produce and also the several amazing solos. The rest of the instruments had these super amazing jam sessions as well. And as for the vocals, they were fine. Honestly, there were times where I would have preferred just an instrumental, but like, the vocals were by no means awful at any point. Just very post-grungy and honestly sounded a lot like early Tool. Honestly, this album was pretty much just like a heavier Alice in Chains with more hypnotic instrumentals. And there for sure was definitely some Hendrix influence in the guitar as well. And actually, come to think about it, there were a lot of blues elements in this record, which was really cool to see given its hard rock nature. Lyrical content wasn't amazing, but there was a low ratio of vocals to instrumentation, which I was okay with. But yeah, good album that I was definitely jiving to. A tier. Okay, album number 350, we got Let Love In by Nick Cave. So this has definitely been one of, if not my favorite new discovery on this challenge. I really liked this record a lot. So the closest thing I can compare this to is Tom Waits. And like, while I've liked the Tom Waits stuff I've heard, I honestly think I gotta like this guy better. The instrumentals on here are 10 out of 10. They're like able to produce this dark, surprising, and really energetic sound, and I'm just all here for that. There's just so much going on musically that I feel like I have to listen to this album a second time just for that. This record also had some gothic elements in it as well, but I definitely felt like they didn't go overboard, which actually made it like this perfect blend. But I can sit here all day trying to describe how I liked this album. It also ended up moving me in this really powerful and emotional way that I can't really put my finger on. And no other record that I've encountered on this list has been able to do what this record has. And because of that, I feel I got to put it at S tier. Alright, next up we got Wrong by No Means No. So right off the bat, I was immediately interested in this record as it wasn't even on Apple Music or Spotify. Like I had to go searching through the depths of YouTube for this bad boy. But upon listening to this, man do I wish it was on platforms because pretty much every song on this record would be going on my playlist. So first off, let's talk about my favorite thing in this album, the frickin' banger bass lines. Like, holy crap, these are like Geddy Lee levels of technicality bass lines that are getting thrown into this hard rock / punk music. And it still works beautifully. But at first I honestly wasn't sure about this album. The vocals in general weren't hitting for me and sometimes the instrumentals felt too noisy. But probably around a third of the way through the album, there was this certain point where it picked you up, started shaking you, and didn't put you back down until the last song. Overall, an extremely chaotic experience, but I absolutely loved it. Like any want-to-be punk band has gotta take some notes from these guys. Now, the closer was very unexpected. Honestly, it didn't do much for me, but it may grow on me if I listen to this record again. So, I really want to put this in S tier, but the first several songs and the closer, because I thought they were slightly lacking in a way compared to the other tracks, but because I imagine I'll probably like them a lot more the second time around I listen to this thing, this album will eventually likely move up there for me. But for now, A tier. But I will give it the honors of having the highest spot. Okay, now for album 348. So at this point in the challenge, I just gotta say, this album list truly is as diverse as it gets. Like, I am talking about a freaking video game soundtrack right now. So, not knowing anything about the game this soundtrack is for, it was a little awkward to listen to. But hey, I could very much picture myself playing a video game while listening to this thing. Also, a slight disclaimer, I definitely had to split this thing up when I was listening to it because I could not sit down for 4.5 hours and listen to a video game soundtrack. That would take someone truly special. So the thing that made this record stick out when compared to other video game soundtracks is that it had this otherworldly feel to it. Like, some of it almost felt like some of Aphex Twin's ambient tracks. Like, these would make for some very solid steady tunes. Now, there was a lot of different stuff used in this soundtrack, and I'm guessing that's because this game has a bunch of different types of maps or areas. The Fugal Japan instruments were cool, and some of the other stuff that was totally out of left field. Like the cathedral music and the industrial sounds mixed with like synthwave. I definitely started to get more interested as this thing went on. Well, the first few tracks were kinda dull. All the battle tracks were sick. Like, definitely some of the coolest I've heard for a video game, and it almost makes me want to play it now. Honestly, there were times where the sounds could get annoying, and I think that's because the fusion of the classic arcade sound to this industrial stuff didn't really mesh well for me. But hey, other times it really worked, so... Although this album had a lot of ups and downs, it was still overall solid and enjoyable. So for that, I'm gonna put it in the middle of B tier. Alright, next up we have Selected Ambient Works Volume 2 by Aphex Twin. So, yo, we got some Minecraft music up in this place. Okay, so I know this album is not quite that, but come on, you gotta admit that some of these songs are straight up sounds from a cave. So I have heard some stuff from Aphex Twin before, like he's definitely one of my favorite electronic artists. But I have not heard this album from him, and let me just say, this is not really like the other stuff I've heard from him. It's amazing how all in the same genre you can go from the most serene to the most anxiety-inducing songs. I think ambient is a genre that serves as a good example of nature. It can be extremely beautiful and calming, but at the same time terrifying and ferocious. Like, for real, some of the songs on here sound like you're entering this super strange and mysterious dimension, inhabited by these beings beyond your perception. Like, there were several times listening to this thing I was just entranced in the sound. There was also almost a tribal sort of feel for some songs, so that was neat. And despite the majority of these tracks being truly ambient songs, there were still some more upbeat songs like number 9. I was definitely really impressed with this album, the sounds it was able to produce and just the feelings it was able to so strongly manifest. We'll put it at A tier because this is some of the best ambient stuff I've heard, but we will put it a bit lower just because, I can't put ambient as a genre over some other stuff on here. Last but certainly not least, we got album 346, which happens to be a live album of a Grateful Dead concert. Or multiple Grateful Dead concerts. Like if the legends that were here for this sat through 3 hours of Grateful Dead, I'd honestly be very jealous. I was very excited when I saw this album because I've definitely been wanting to get into more of the Grateful Dead stuff. The main thing about this record that piqued my interest was the ability on here to play these crazy guitar solos, but play them so quietly and peacefully. And yeah, I know the instrumentals may be long, but things are constantly changing in them, even when it doesn't really seem like it. It's honestly really crazy how pretty much all the songs seamlessly transitioned into one another. Seriously, it was so hard to tell sometimes when the next song started. And by the time you thought it actually did, you were really already at the halfway point. The song Spanish Jam I really liked because it had some very Pink Floyd-esque guitar and I was all here for that. The sounds this guitarist is able to create are just super masterful. And there were so many different genres hidden in here, actually things could get pretty funky at times. The added female vocals were also amazing. I hope that woman appears in more of their stuff and isn't just in that live album. And the main singer's voice was actually super energetic, it had an Elvis flair to it. So that just goes to show that this band is a whole lot more than just your average chill singer-songwriter sort of stuff. But yeah, I totally loved this album, and I was always looking forward to the next song that it would have to offer, so it's an easy A tier, high A tier. Well, alright guys, that'll do it for this video. I would really enjoy your guys' feedback. If you like this, let me know, hit that like button, and I will be back next week with some more musical content. Peace out.